Hey everyone, Fox here from Fox and Kit Woodworks. I am doing a review video today on the Cutech 2-speed 13-inch tabletop spiral head planer. I know I got that out of order, but we're going to do the best we can. And this is an awesome video for me and also for you guys. I have to give a big thank you to you all because you guys made this possible by following me, hitting those affiliate links, doing all those things to help support the channel. And they actually were able to collaborate with me and send me this to do a full tool review. This is a tabletop planer. It has two speeds, 26 and 16 feet a minute. It is a spiral head planer, so that has 26 individual blades. One of the nice features with the Cutech that I really like is the fact that they already include it with carbide blades. Additionally, there's some other little features that we will get to while we're operating it, but there is a lot of little features here from looking at other machines I really tend to like better than most others. Now, let's go ahead and get into what we're going to be working with today. We're going to be working with today some softwoods. This is going to be our Center Heart Redwood, a common hardwood for most of us out there with the form of walnut, and finally some specialty wood, some Canary Wood. Hey everyone, Post Edit Fox here. Wanted to give you guys some FYI PSA for you guys. Before you run any of your wood through your planer, you need to make sure that it's jointed and flat. Otherwise, you're going to get a thickness plane board that's curved, bowed, twisted, you name it. You're going to have some issues with it. It's not going to be straight. This is made to make thickness cuts, not to make stuff flat and square. That's where a purchase of a joiner is really going to help you out. Now, if you're not quite ready for a joiner, what you can do is make a joining board for your planer. Basically, it's a 3/4 inch piece of ply with a backstop. You take some shim, take some hot glue, make sure all the wobble's out, run your passes through it, and then take it off the board and finish it. So I'll link some tutorials that I've seen online in the description. That way you guys can make yourself a joiner board. Okay, and to start, let's give it a little something easy. We're going to go ahead and go with the Center Heart Redwood. It's our softest wood. It can be prone to tear out, so we're going to see how this goes. We're going to be taking about a 64th inch at a time, just so that we can reduce that tear out as much as possible. Now, I forgot to turn the vacuum on, so we'll have to check the dust collection once I do that. But as we can see, very smooth. I ran it against the grain. This grain's kind of coming out towards you guys. A little bit of chip out here. If I was to flip it around, probably clean it right up. I'm not too worried about it. We're going to set this over to the planer, because that's what's next. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and do some walnut. I remembered to turn the vacuum on, so sorry for the background noise. We've actually upped the game on this. We put it up to 1/32 of an inch. So let's see how well that takes it off. Nice and smooth. This piece was pretty much already jointed. I jointed it a while ago, so I just kind of finished it up. But as we can see, very, very flat all along. Let's go ahead and move over to the Canary Wood. There we have it, a nice, beautiful piece of Canary Wood. Little bit of chip out here right by a knot. That's something that's going to happen a lot of times. But doing an amazing job. We'll go ahead and check it one more time. Dead flat. We're looking good. Okay, and before I get down to the planer now, which is our big piece of the day, obviously, I want to go over a few features on it that you can see right off the bat. Now, one of the things I really like about this style planer and the way they've changed it is similar styled planers I've noticed have a bar that goes back and forth here. But this is for your stop, right? So if you want to repeatable cut things down to 3/4 of an inch, you adjust it here. And on this one, I really like the fact of the ease of it. It's just a wheel you can go in circles all the way around unless you're hitting the actual planer head. So the one thing that the instruction manual says, and it even has right here, it says shift only while machine is running. It's really nice having those features already built into the machine. That way you don't have to go back and find that manual. If you're like me, you probably have a drawer that's just got every manual of a tool you own shoved in there. And sometimes finding that manual can be a little difficult. But with it having here on the front of the machine and labeled right where it's at, it's really easy to figure it out. It has that. It tells you in the up position, it's going to be for faster feeding. The lower position is going to be the slower feeding for finishing work. And even on the back side over here, they actually have instructions on the back that talk about how to replace the blades, how they need to be aligned, how you adjust them with the cutting surface or the cutting blade when you need to rotate it to a new cutting blade. It just has a lot of intuitive features. I just really like how it's designed and laid out. Additionally, I know I've talked about moving this thing around. It is heavy, but I do like the fact that they have the top handle here when it's in the low position, and they also have a bottom handle here. My other planer does have that. I just never noticed that it had the bottom handle. This one just felt easier to grab onto, and honestly, no reason for it besides maybe I just noticed it for the first time. They have an indicator gauge here. You have to put the wood in the center of the machine. The only thing I would say is it would be awesome if they could add it so that there's a bar with supports or something so that we could have gauges along the sides. That way you can put the piece of wood anywhere and figure out what it is. Obviously, with a smaller piece of wood, you just come up here, you lower it down, you get it to where it's about a 64th, maybe a 32nd coming off, right about there. You can see how it bounces, and then you can set your piece of wood. The reason why I say this is when you're using these cutter heads, one of the things that I like to do, especially with the high-speed steel versus maybe even the carbide blades, but moving those smaller pieces of boards around will at least hopefully keep your cutter head blades roughly the same sharpness. If you always are constantly going in the middle with it, when you go to put a big piece of wood in, you're going to end up having duller blades in the middle versus on the outside. It might lead to some slowdown or maybe some chip out. So that's just a little tip for you guys while using this. Oh, and after plugging that in, I do have one other thing for you guys to do when you're milling your wood. One thing that I like to do, especially when I'm working on multiple projects, I'll either label them or I know them in my head which one needs to go to what thickness. But another thing you can do is actually stack them in an order so that you're going from the thickest to the thinnest. That way you're not having to constantly raise and lower the cutter head. It just saves you some time. Right now we're starting with this one, then we'll move to the walnut and then to the other pieces of the redwood and the canary wood to get it down to the proper thickness. We are set to the slow finishing speed. We're going to turn it on. We're going to see how well it switches to the high, and we're going to go ahead and send it through. Machine goes on. And we're in high feed. Okay, that's a good speed. I really like how that went. Let's go ahead and test it in the slow speed to do a finishing, because one of the things, especially when you get around knots and especially if you have wavy grain, you'll start to get those little bits of chip out. And I just want to see how well it does in the slow speed and show you guys how it works. Now, I did have to adjust the knob here. This is right at 3/4 of an inch, just barely over. After that first pass, it did actually take it right at it. So I have now adjusted to a half, and I don't need to go much lower than what I'm at, but that gives me that playroom for it. One thing I did notice off the bat with this rolling mechanism and the way they're staircased in there, I didn't get that deflection. On my other one, I feel like I can crank down on it, and it'll really kind of get that little extra 1/16 of an inch out. This one, it isn't. It's going to be really true. So let's turn it on, go to high speed, and see how it does. Excuse me, slow speed. Okay, we have now done it at the slow speed. One thing I am noticing, it took out, if I did 1 or 2 more passes, that little mark here, that was where I had that chip out, it is virtually gone. There's still no more tear out going on there. I'm looking at it, inspecting it for snipe. There's a slight amount of snipe here on the edges. Pretty fine. If I adjusted these tables slightly up, it would probably eliminate that more so, or if I fed it through with my hand lifting it up, but this board isn't really long enough to do that. But pretty good. Actually very good. I'm very excited about how well this is doing. We're going to turn it back on, go to the high speed, and we're going to run our walnut through next. Okay, and we're back for the walnut. This time we're actually going to see it and kind of put it to the test. We're going to try to take a 30-second off. If you go in the instruction manual, it'll tell you, depending on the thickness of wood and type of wood you're using, what the max amount is. We're going to throw it to the high speed and see how well it does at a 30-second. Should be good. Typically, I try to stay around a 30-second to a 64th just to avoid tear out. Like I said, these projects are going to be fine finished work, so we want to keep that to a minimum to help with us speeding the project up, not having to do as much sanding, just some fine sanding. Okay, there we have it. Very minimal tear out. I got a little piece up here. Everything else is nice and smooth. This knot has some cross grain on it. We'll flip it around and we'll do that, or we'll run it the same way, and we'll run it through with the slower speed setting. In fact, we will flip it this way, based looking at the grain. That'll probably be the best to reduce the tear out. But we're going to see how well this does through it. So far, very impressed. My biggest impression on here is the dust collection. On my other one, I was using a shop vac. It wasn't as much volume of air. I got lots of chips coming out back at me. This guy, that's all you can see. One thing you want to make sure to do is wipe that off. Make sure the machine's off when you're doing that. That way you don't get anything kind of thrown off your bed. But even looking down in the bed, nice and clean, not a lot of wood chips. Okay, so I can talk a little easier with you guys. Doing an amazing job. I am so happy with having this 2-speed of capability. Ran it back through, eliminated most of the tear out. There's a few spots in here where just because of the grain, the way it's popping up and angled from this knot where a tree limb used to be. Otherwise, super smooth, very little scalloping. The scalloping on these guys isn't kind of like the dimpling effect that you might get with like a Helix head. Or the DNA strand head. I can't think of that right now. Helix is the brand. Helical head, helical cutter. There we go. It's more like you get little tiny lines from it, and whatever kind of finish is last, it kind of bounces back and forth. Very faint. I mean, 120 grit, 180 grit sandpaper, you wouldn't even feel those. Amazing job, especially in that slow speed. Reduces that tear out. I am super happy with this so far. Okay, now before we actually go on to the project build and show you how these things look when they're completely done and built, let's just go over kind of how well it worked, so that way you guys kind of get an idea of the finish on this. Now, with the redwood, very smooth, no noticeable lines, maybe occasionally in some spots, but nothing crazy. Sometimes with the spiral heads, especially if maybe they're not set up correctly or the blades are out of alignment, things like that, you're going to get these little lines through your project, and you can feel them, but sometimes it's bad enough to see them. Absolutely smooth. You hit this with a 180, 220, you're golden. It's going to save so much sanding time by getting to this kind of level of finish. Also, on these pieces, I snapped one on accident. All of them, very little snipe. The only one that got a decent amount of snipe on it, and it was because I actually put it in kind of high and then pulled down on it when it was coming through, was this board. All the others, very little snipe to no snipe at all. Again, high quality when it comes to doing a finish work on softwood, which is very much known for tearing out when you're doing it. Next, our classic walnut. Again, very smooth, no real discernible lines, occasionally maybe a spot here or there. Running it back through a second time would clean that up. One of the things that I didn't go over initially in those videos is that once you have it down to its thickness, it's okay to set it down to that lowest board setting. Don't even touch the the adjustment handle and just run it through. If there are any high spots, maybe it got a little gapping when it was going through it on that slow speed, it's going to knock it nice and smooth. Again, very little tear out. The only area I had tear out on was around this knot, which are very prone to tearing out because you have a lot of end grain. Our Canary Wood, again, super smooth, not really needing to be sanded. In fact, when my uncle was over the other day and he picked this up, he's like, you don't even have to sand this. Now, if you're a fine woodworker, you're going to know that you're going to sand it anyways. Since it's pretty much eliminating that need to actually start at like an 80, a 120, and then work your way up to 180, 220, 240, whatever your heart desires for your sanding. I mean, you can just come right in at a 180 or a 220 and do that finish sanding, water pop it, and hit it with your hand sander, and you're just off to the races. Really love that fact. Okay, and there we have it. You got to see all the products that we made over the last couple days with using the Cutech 13-inch 2-speed spiral head planer. And here they are next to me. Now, obviously, there's a few things you're probably waiting to hear about. One is, how was the finish on these? How easy was it to work with and sand when it came down to the end final product? Besides that, you're probably wondering how much this guy costs and is it worth it? Well, we're going to hit those right now. First off, for these products, I worked with a couple different types of wood. As you saw, we went with walnut, canary wood, and some Center Heart Redwood. Superb through it, especially with this 2-speed and dropping it down where it says right here, the slow feed finishing for that fine finish. Most of the pieces didn't really even need to be sanded. So now, as us woodworkers, we're going to sand it anyways. We're going to make sure we get it to that 220, 240 grit or even higher sometimes. Honestly, with the canary wood and the walnut, I didn't really feel any types of those little lines in it. If I did, it was so faint. A little bit of 180, it was done, smooth as butter and good to go. With the Center Heart Redwood, pretty much the same. Because it's a softer wood, I could notice those little bits of ridges a little bit more, but again, it wasn't visible to the eye. It was barely barely noticeable to the touch. Words are hard these days. That really sped up my finishing process on all three of these guys. I was actually able to just hit it with the sandpaper, get it done really quick, and then move on with my project. Whereas other times, I would be spending hours sanding projects. Now, the price point. We're a budget-friendly place here. I know that Cutech sent me this to do this collaboration, and I really appreciate them doing that. But honestly, if I was to go back in time when I purchased my original planer, I wish I would have held off and found the 2-speed, because at $649, it is absolutely worth every penny. I haven't been able to find a single complaint about it right now. I'm going to be using it in the shop over the next couple months. I'll come up and see if there's anything that maybe could be worked on, or maybe I had an issue come up with. But as of now, out of the box, everything was good. Very minimal, if no snipe. Typically, when I did get snipe, it was my own fault because I held too much pressure on it one way or the other. And when I actually just put light pressure on the up and the out, it was perfect, or even just letting it go through. We were in good business there. Now, one other final piece that I really want to touch on here is customer service. Their customer service is outstanding. I have called them multiple times just to talk to them about their products, what they offer, order products from them, talking about the technical specs on these guys, and they have not failed me once. I'm going to give a huge shout out here to Betty over at Cutech. I have talked to her a lot. She is their customer service gal. She is amazing. She will lead you right in the right direction to find the right tool for your shop. So please, if you have any further questions after this video, give them a call, talk to Betty. She'll steer you in the right direction. Now, my final thoughts. Is it worth the $649? Absolutely. From the 2-speed to the solid depth stop, the dust collection, the little indicator gauge, and more importantly, the carbide inserts, it is amazing for that. When you look at other tools in this style with the 2-speed, It's about 80 bucks more, maybe 20 bucks more, depending on which brand you go with. But the fact that they put the carbide blades in there just is a big selling point. Depending on which brand you look at, you would be saving about $20 on average, but you're going to get high-speed steel. The carbide inserts alone are about $100 to $120 after shipping and tax. So it's already set up and dialed in. One thing that I'll also let you know, comparatively to some other brands that might use a 4-bladed insert versus a 2-bladed insert like the Cutech, the reason why is they, through their testing and their experience, recommend a 2-bladed insert for more accuracy. Since you have a flat square surface to go into the cutter head to square up with it in the insert position, it's going to make sure that that blade is set correctly and that you're not going to get it tilted in one way or another, leaving those deep lines or gouge marks when you run it through. Overall, fantastic machine. Would highly recommend it. Would definitely buy this in a heartbeat. Have to say thank you for Cutech for sending this out to me to do this collaboration. But if you're in the market looking for a planer, I would highly look at the Cutech brand, especially this 2-speed. You could even look at some of their smaller ones in the single speed if a 2-speed isn't needed for you and save a little money there. They all come with the carbide blades, which is a must really when you're working in a shop, especially with hardwoods or knotty woods. So that being said, please hit that like, subscribe, and notification button. Send it to your friends. Also, affiliate links for all the tools that you've seen here will be at the bottom of the description. Remember, it goes back to support the channel, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thickest.